Okay, first of all, I met Scott Peterson November 20th, 2002.
Directly to the killer, who may be in this room.
I'm going to turn now to that new charge for the so-called doomsday mom, Lori Vallow, already charged in the killing of her two children. She is now being indicted for conspiracy to commit murder.
A violation of Penal Code Section 187 Prene, murder in the first degree. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to True Crime Headlines. My name is Lauren, and this is week 41 of the year 2021. First and foremost, I want to apologize that I did not release an episode last week. I was actually up in St. Augustine, which is a super spooky city, and I had a great time. But now I'm back, and we've got a full load. I actually brought in two people to help me tonight. We've got Nigel Kent again, returning. Yay! Applause! And this time we have his co-host from their show, Trouble in Paradise, Jazmine Starr. Yay! Everybody clap for Jazmine! Whee! All right. So what's in store for you guys tonight? This is a not great topics, but we have a lot of true crime headlines. But first, if you would like to support the show, please consider subscribing to our Palmahawk Media Patreon. That's patreon.com/Palmahawk Media, PALAMAHAWK Media. And I also want to welcome Melissa to our Patreon. She is our latest Patreon. I don't know if you signed up because of True Crime Headlines or because of Paradise After Dark, but either way, you're going to get a shout out on both shows. So, Nigel, Jazmine, are you guys ready to just dive into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. So, I'm going to kick this off with our first story of the night. Gabby Potito autopsy. This is big news this week. Cause of death was strangulation, Teton County Coroner Dr. Brent Blue says. Gabby Potito died from strangulation. Dr. Brent Blue revealed during a Tuesday news briefing, weeks after the FBI uncovered the 22-year-old's remains at Bridger Teton National Forest north of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Blue last month announced the young woman's manner of death was homicide. But now, there's a manner of death and then there's a cause of death. So now we know her cause of death was strangulation. Brian Laundrie, Potito's fiancé and the only person of interest named in connection with the case, hasn't been seen since September 13th. He's also the subject of a federal warrant for alleged bank card fraud. Potito's remains were out in the Wyoming wilderness for 3 to 4 weeks, Brent said, without going into detail about the impact this may have had on the autopsy. She was last seen alive in public on August 27th, 3 weeks and 2 days before the discovery. We hereby find the cause and manner of death to be the cause, death by strangulation, and manner is homicide, Blue said. By Wyoming state statute, no other information will be released about the autopsy. He ruled out rumors that Potito had been pregnant at the time of her death and stressed that information about the potential suspect would have to come from law enforcement. Blue declined to go into greater detail about the autopsy findings, citing Wyoming law. Pat Diaz, longtime Miami-Dade homicide detective, said the examiner likely reached the strangulation conclusion due to a broken hyoid, which he said could only be seen through an X-ray due to the body's state of decomposition. Strangulation could be difficult to prosecute in court without a confession, Diaz says, but it's not impossible. Blue had previously declined to answer questions about whether his office was equipped with an X-ray machine, but said Tuesday that the entire autopsy was conducted at his facility. He attributed the lengthy delay in announcing the cause of death to his thoroughness in the examination of the body. We were very exacting in our examination and the detail by which the examination was done, he said. We were waiting for various specialists to come in and help us with this investigation. We were waiting on toxicology to be returned, and it was just a matter of making sure we had everything right. He declined to release any findings from the toxicology report, citing again Wyoming statute. As of Friday, Potito's remains were still being held in Wyoming. Blue said the family was making arrangements for her to return home to New York. Bringing her home is the family's top priority, the attorney for her parents, Richard Stafford, told Fox News.
And still the number one question on everybody's mind.
Where is Brian Laundrie?
Yep. I don't know if any progress has been made on that in the last week or so.
Not really. I've got some information this week, but it's really not much. All right, let's move on. And Jasmine, can you take us to our next story?
Sure can. Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow's brother describes pattern after third and fourth husband's deaths. Newly released Arizona police documents suggest the so-called Doomsday cult mom, Lori Daybell, charged with conspiring to commit the murders of her son, daughter, fourth husband, and the wife of her current and fifth husband, previously discussed her failed plot to have her third husband killed. The Chandler Police Department last week released thousands of files, including text messages, hundreds of pages of police reports, and audio and videos of interviews conducted by detectives investigating Lori and Chad Daybell. It was Charles Vallow's death on July 11, 2019 that launched the Chandler Police Department investigation. But friends and family members have since told investigators that Lori Daybell allegedly conspired to have her third husband and Tylee's father, Joseph Ryan, killed. In 2007, Alex Cox assaulted Joseph Ryan with a taser in a Texas parking lot. Ryan survived but was hospitalized for several days, and Alex Cox was convicted of that assault. Lori and Alex planned to kill Joe. Daybell's brother, Adam Cox, previously told detectives, according to documents obtained by Desert News. They planned out how they were going to kill Joe, and Al was going to taser him, throw him in the trunk, and take him out into a field and shoot him and then bury him. Well, Al went to taser him, and it didn't work, and Joe called the cops, and Al went to jail. Multiple other friends told detectives a similar account, according to the documents. Angeline Law, who considered Lori Daybell a close friend after meeting her while living in Kauai, told investigators, Lori had said before that she hired her brother to kill Joe because he did stuff to them. During a bitter custody battle, Lori Daybell accused Joseph Ryan of sexually assaulting Tylee, as well as her older son, Colby Ryan. Joseph Ryan was later cleared of those allegations. He died at his Phoenix, Arizona apartment in April of 2018 from what authorities ruled to be a heart attack. It's odd that Joe, her ex-husband, supposedly died of a heart attack when they were so desperate for money that he left her $50,000 and Tylee gets $2,000. Then Charles had $2 million. Adam Cox said in an interview with detectives, "There's a lot of red flags for me. There's got to be somewhere where they talk this through because Lori and Alex planned Joe's death." Adam Cox continued, "I'm telling you, there's something wrong about Lori and Alex and this belief that they have. Lori thinks death is nothing. The family, cousins, and uncles, they understand the history with Lori, Alex, and Lori's ex-husbands. There is a whole pattern of things here," he said. Tylee was to receive $2,000 a month until her 18th birthday, even after her father's death. Another friend told investigators. Phoenix police said Joseph Ryan's body was discovered after a neighbor reported a foul smell coming from his apartment. But that account is inconsistent with what April Raymond, another friend of Lori's from Hawaii, told investigators. Raymond said Lori visited her shortly after Ryan's death. "My understanding, if I remember correctly, what she told me is they hadn't heard from Joe for about a month, and so she and Tylee went over to check on him or to see him, because I guess Tylee had a key or something. And when they went there, they had found him dead," Raymond said on January 7th, 2020. Lori Daybell reportedly never told Joseph Ryan's family about his passing, and his sister Annie Cushing, said she was contacted by the medical examiner after no one claimed his body. Phoenix police briefly reopened the case, but were unable to find any connection linking Laurie to Joseph Ryan's death.
How do you get to the point in your life where you're thinking about killing your fourth husband? That sums this entire story up.
This story, have you guys followed this story much?
I have not. Actually, this is my first exposure to this story. And
are you serious?
So with every detail that Jasmine just read, my jaw is dropping further and further towards the ground. Like, you've got to be kidding me with this one.
You have not heard of Laurie and Chad Daybell, the doomsday parents that killed their kids and killed the wife, killed the husband, killed the ex-husband. The brother died mysteriously. Oh my gosh.
That's a Doomsday Parents is a great name for a heavy metal band, though.
Yeah, you should start one.
Well, how about I start the next story?
Okay, sounds good.
A DNA tool that caught Golden State Killer could soon track Australian criminals. NSW Police and the Australian Federal Police may soon be using the game-changing DNA tool that led U.S. law enforcement to the door of the evil Golden State Killer. More than 3 decades after his trial went cold, Joseph James DeAngelo, one of California's most prolific serial killers and rapists, was caught by using online genealogical sites to find a DNA match. The U.S. investigators compared the DNA collected from a crime scene of the Golden State Killer to online genetic profiles and found a match. A relative of the man police identified as DeAngelo, now 75, who was arrested at his Sacramento home in 2018. Specialists from New South Wales Police and the Australian Federal Police, along with collaborators from other Australian jurisdictions, have been assessing forensic genetic genealogy as an investigative tool after recently becoming certified to use this technology. FGG, also known as long-range familial DNA searching, would be used to identify suspects and missing people when no match is found on current criminal DNA databases. That's a little bit scary. The method uses a wider set of genetic markers than the current technology available to Australian law enforcement. It would allow investigators to identify family matches up to third and fourth cousins. Current familial searching on Australia's National Criminal Investigation DNA database can only identify close family matches. Dr. Nathan Scudder, Coordinator of Research and Innovation at the Australian Federal Police, said police in Australia were constantly evaluating new and innovative techniques to solve cases. Quote, serious and violent offenders shouldn't think that because they have never given a DNA sample, it means that they got away with their crimes, he said. And quote, a family connection may lead police straight to their door. Associate Professor Claire Glenn, a director of the FGG certification course, said she was excited about the DNA tool's potential use in Australian jurisdictions. Quote, the global use of this investigatory tool is increasing and is being adopted by several countries as its potential to solve violent crimes and bring justice to victims is realized. Since the capture of the Golden State Killer, an estimated 200 cases have been resolved in the United States, from giving a name to unknown remains to identifying suspects in cold case homicide and sexual assault investigations.
Yay, that's my favorite.
If introduced in Australia, New South Wales Police said the method will be subject to legal and security reviews and would be governed by strict policy and procedures.
I love that.
I'm glad they have a tool that helps solve crimes. I just hope that it always is used to catch the bad guys.
It's a slippery slope. But so far, so good. I know that the Golden State Killer was caught using a program called GEDmatch, and there was a lot of controversy about it before. But now on GEDmatch, you have the option to opt in or opt out of allowing law enforcement to review your DNA. And I know Ken and I have both done the DNA thing. We did it through Ancestry, but you can take your DNA through Ancestry and put it on GEDmatch, which gives you a huge wider range of matches. And we both decided to opt in because we want to be crime fighters, you know what I mean? If someone in my family murdered someone, they should go to prison. Yeah. So But yeah, it is a little controversial, but I love the things that the steps that strides that they're making with DNA and solving all these cold cases. And it's almost going to be to the point where people are never going to be able to get away with anything, which I think is awesome.
Well, the ideal is justice for everybody, right? I mean, people should be able to freely exist in society without being assaulted or having their rights damaged by an attack or a murder or a rape.
Right.
So if the bad guys always get caught, then the good guys are winning.
Exactly. Are we moving on?
Moving on here. We've got judge has granted Chad Daybell's request to move his trial. A judge is moving the trial of Chad Daybell, who is accused in the murder of his wife's 2 children, as well as the murder of his first wife. Last Friday, an Idaho judge granted Daybell's request to move his trial. That's after this week's hearing, considering the request, which was made in July. Daybell is accused of conspiring with his current wife, Laurie Vallow, to murder her 2 children, 17-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old JJ Vallow, along with Daybell's former wife, Tammy. Prosecutors are asking for the death penalty. A new date for Daybell's trial, which was previously scheduled to start in November, has not yet been set. Vallow's case has been put on hold indefinitely after a judge determined she was not competent to stand trial.
Because that bitch crazy.
I'm sorry, but with all this premeditation that has to be involved with all of this, I mean, how many serial killers in the past and everything, they still show that they're competent to stand trial.
Right.
And I think that, like this whole thing, to say that she's not competent is absolute.
I think she's a manipulative sociopath, honestly.
Yeah.
Psychopath,
right.
To be honest.
And you have to draw the line somewhere whenever it comes to mental health and what somebody's actually competent or incompetent. And in this case, I don't see how she is possibly not competent to stand trial.
I'm not sure.
How do you think Daybell and Vallow met? I mean, do you think
I do know how they met.
Okay, how did they meet?
Well, Chad Daybell wrote a bunch of doomsday books, and he would be doing these traveling book signings, and she was like a groupie.
Okay.
And following his, he would do lectures and do book signings.
So he got sucked into this murderous web of conspiracy.
Well, he's not right either. Mm-hmm. I mean, not to say that I've actually read his books. I have not. But from what I know, they think that people can be zombies. People's souls can be taken over, and then they turn into zombies. And
these are fiction books, I assume.
Well, he says that they're not fiction, but
there's actually like a cultural thing in the Haitian culture where they believe that a soul that has, or a person that's passed, can actually come back as a zombie. It's like that is a legitimate, real thing that, at least in that culture, that they believe. So maybe like he's taken some of that and like translated it over into this culture.
Yeah, I honestly don't understand their thinking. I don't think anybody really does, but it's just nuts.
You know what else is nuts?
What?
Advertisements.
I know. But they're necessary, so here we go. And we are back, and I'm just going to jump right back into it. Somebody knows what happened. Doc filmmaker speaks on case about Georgia teen found dead inside gym mat. For years, rumors and controversy have swirled around the death of 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson, a Georgia teen who was found dead inside a rolled-up gymnasium mat in 2013. Many of our true crime podcast friends have covered this case. While conspiracies surrounding Kendrick's death have been the subject of numerous investigative shows and documentaries, filmmaker Jason Pollock, who recently released Finding Kendrick Johnson, focuses on one fundamental question: what happened? There are no conspiracy theories in the film.
Conspiracy theories?
That's right up your guys' alley. There's no conspiracy theories in the film, he tells people, but there are facts. There are facts that are irrefutable and are mostly from the state's own documents. On January 10, 2013, when Kendrick didn't return home from school, his mom, Jacqueline Johnson, wasn't worried at first. She checked in with his father to see if he'd been in contact or reached out to other family and friends, but when she discovered no one had heard from him, she quickly filed a missing persons report. The following day, she went to the school to alert staff he was missing, as well as to check if he'd shown up. The counselor hadn't heard, Jacqueline recalls, but then the phone rang. A voice was telling her they just found a body in the gym. I'm breaking into pieces because I know it's my child.
How does she know that?
Well, her son is missing, and they found a body in the gym at his school.
Oh, that was at the school gym.
Yes.
Oh, I guess that was
school gym.
That was the counselor saying that then.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we just found a body in the gym.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord.
For years, Jacqueline and her family fought for answers that never came. When authorities ruled Kendrick's death accidental, theorizing he had fallen into the opening at the center of the mat and suffocated. Now picture like these gym mats are rolled up and they're vertical, and they're all stacked together.
Yeah.
So he was found...
Like a tumbling mat, that kind of a thing. Big, heavy thing.
Yeah. So he was found upside down in the middle of one of those mats.
And he's 17 years old?
Yes.
Okay, that seems like it would just naturally occur.
So, theorizing he had fallen into the opening at the center of the mat and suffocated, the Johnsons conducted an independent autopsy of their own, which determined he was a victim of foul play. For now, Pollock hopes people will watch the documentary to learn the facts of the case and decide on their own whether Kendrick was a victim of an accident or a crime. The whole point is I don't know what happened, but somebody there does, he says.
Was he the type to just dive headfirst into mats? I mean...
I actually haven't watched this documentary, but I plan to within the next week or so. It's on Amazon Prime Video.
Okay, what is it called again?
It's called...
Finding Kendrick Johnson, yeah. Jason Pollock. And there's no conspiracy theories in the film. I mean, there has to be speculation.
Well, if you've dove into it, and like I said, a lot of our true crime podcast friends have covered it. I know True Crime Garage covered it. I'm pretty sure Generation Y covered it. There's plenty of podcasts you can listen to about it. There's a lot of speculation that he was killed and kind of put in that position in the mat.
So, interestingly, whenever I listen to an article like this and everything, sometimes I start to get impressions of my own. For those that aren't familiar with me, I am a psychic medium. So, take the information as you will, but I actually see two males that actually roll him up in this mat and then place him in, flip the mat up, and then put it into.
Really? Mm-hmm. Interesting. Had you ever heard of this case before?
No, I don't know anything about it, but just listening to it, being read and everything, I start to, see images of what I'm picking up on, what could have possibly happened. And yeah, I see two males that it appears, I can't tell his actual cause of death, but the mat is like laying down in the gymnasium and he is put on the mat and then rolled up, and then they place the mat up into an upright position. So
interesting. All right.
Yeah.
I'll keep that in mind when I watch the documentary. Because right at the top of my head, I can't remember what all the theories are, but there were theories that other kids at the school may have been involved. So I'll keep that in mind when I watch the documentary.
Yeah, the number 15 is coming up. So I think one of the boys is around the age of 15. The other one, I believe, would be probably around the same age. But one is a couple years younger than he is.
All right, so yeah, I'm definitely going to keep that in mind. Let's move on to the next headline we have here. Nigel?
Well, this one is right up Jasmine and my alley. Okay.
Can you tell us about your show that you guys have? I mean, like, I was going to wait till the end for you guys to...
Sure. Well, this next story is right up our alley because our show is about speculation and conjecture and conspiracy theories. It is called Trouble in Paradise, and we talk about some pretty out there things. You know, spooky things, UFOs, government programs, conspiracy theories, and the big global cabal.
Sometimes their podcast makes my head hurt a little bit. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yes. So when there's a TikTok sleuth, which is a bit of an oxymoron, but let's just go with it. A TikTok sleuth who thinks that Brian Laundrie is hiding in a bunker under his parents' backyard. I must say, even though this is a TikTok sleuth, this kind of stuff does resonate just a little bit because it reminds me of some of the conversations that Jasmine and I have had on our show. All right, TikTok sleuth thinks Brian Laundrie is hiding in a bunker under his parents' backyard. If this turns out to be the truth, the FBI is so screwed. TikTok sleuths think Brian Laundrie may be hiding in an underground bunker beneath his parents' flower bed, based on drone video footage that some say shows a hand sticking out of the soil. The footage shows Roberta and Chris Laundrie working in their garden at their Florida home before... Okay, this is going to get lampooned.
Just go.
Before moving inside, as soon as they see the drone watching them, "Dad, get inside, Roberta, the drones are back." In the first few seconds, people claim they can see Roberta Laundrie grab something or give something to a hand that pops up from the dirt, leading them to suspect their fugitive son is hiding in a bunker beneath the backyard. It is unclear when the original footage was taken.
Can this case get any more bizarre? I mean, seriously.
I think it's about to. TikTok account at Charlie Nova site posted a zoomed-in version of the video captioned, "There is definitely someone there. You cannot change my mind." At least 3 other accounts also posted the footage, prompting thousands of responses and people asking the police to search the backyard because they didn't F this investigation up at all. The at Charlie Nova site account also posted videos taken by Potito of Brian Laundrie in a van together. Quote, "Look how content he is in small places, not needing much room," the account wrote. Quote, "Look at the tools and basic building knowledge the Laundries have. Don't tell me a hideout under that new garden is impossible." Bunker contractors told Fox News it would be possible to construct a subterranean hideout in their yard, and that false flower beds could be used to conceal the entrance. The possibility of having a bunker there, his parents having a bunker, is absolutely 100% plausible, said Gary Lynch, who runs a contracting company. However, that being said, it didn't look anything like if a hand came out of the bunker to me. The Laundrie family's counsel previously said they have nothing to do with their son's disappearance and are worried about his well-being. Quote, "They are concerned about Brian and hope the FBI can locate him," unquote, their lawyer said in a statement. Quote, "The speculation by the public and some in the press that the parents assisted Brian in leaving the family home or in avoiding arrest on a warrant that was issued after Brian had already been missing for several days is just wrong." Well, the warrant was issued for some kind of credit card fraud, right? And that was well after the fact. If he wasn't charged with anything, then aren't they within their legal bounds to... I mean, it's not like it would be obstruction of justice if there was a charge, right?
Well, yes. And actually, Ken and I discussed this on our last Paradise After Dark episode. When he went missing on September 13th, he was not a fugitive. He was not charged with any crime. Therefore, them helping them would not be a crime. But now that he has a federal warrant out for his arrest, anything that they do to help him is going to be put back on them, and they can be criminally charged for that.
From that point forward, or
Yes.
going back even before the charge was issued?
That's a sticky situation. From what I know about the law, and it's going to be Florida law, which I specialize in, apparently. But I have a degree in it, but I don't know.
Well, I think the FBI can probably come up with some other charge if they need to, and say,
Yeah.
hey, this crime was
Federal
committed on
law
a previous date.
Is a whole different animal than like state law. So I think that they could probably come up with some kind of charges for the parents.
This just makes me think of that movie Blast from the Past. I don't know if you guys have seen it, where there's like the underground
With
bunker.
Alicia Silverstone. Yeah.
Yes.
And they live in that bunker for like 30 Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Don't touch my elevator.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's all I keep picturing whenever I hear this story is like that movie Blast from the Past. So next we have former UFC champion Chuck Liddell arrested for domestic violence. Former UFC star Chuck Liddell was arrested Monday morning for domestic violence. Deputies responded to Liddell's Hidden Hills, California home around 12 a.m. after reports of a family disturbance, a spokesperson for the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department said in a statement to People. Upon arrival, deputies determined Chuck Liddell and his wife had been involved in a physical altercation, the department spokesperson wrote. Liddell, 51, was charged and arrested with domestic battery. He was booked at the Lost Hills Sheriff Station, where he was later released on a $20,000 bond, jail records show. He is expected to appear in court on December 8th. A representative for Liddell did not immediately respond to People's request for comment. Liddell, known as the Iceman, is a former UFC light heavyweight champion. He made his debut in 1998 and retired 12 years later in 2010.
And he also apparently beats up his wife.
It
is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, by the way.
Is that every October?
Yes.
Oh.
As both women are like, yes.
Yes. Nigel, you just got told.
Don't you know this?
Okay, moving on. And this one is sort of a follow-up. I think it could have even been my first or second episode of True Crime Headlines. I covered this story about the couple in Moab, Utah, who were murdered. So the headline is how an investigator is using satellite images to solve murders of Utah couple who noticed, quote, creepy man. A Utah-based private investigator is optimistic he'll solve the gruesome mid-August murders of a newlywed couple, Crystal Turner and Kylan Schultz, believing that satellite imagery and increased awareness of the killing on social media will crack the case. Jason K. Jensen tells People he's working pro bono on the case after Schultz's aunt reached out looking for his help. He says that solving the murders hinges entirely on finding the, quote, creepy man the nomadic couple had described in text messages to family and friends just before they stopped responding.
Moab, right?
Yes.
Maybe it was Brian.
Well, I'm getting to that.
Did I steal something? I'm sorry.
In those messages, the women said that they would likely be moving campsites because they had been having problems with a strange man while camping at La Salle Mountains just outside Moab. At least one text, the couple, married for just 4 months, commented that if they ended up dead, they were murdered. Turner, 38, and Schultz, 24, lived in their van, moving from campsite to campsite, but primarily stayed in the Moab area. They had left to go on a camping excursion on August 13th and were last seen later that evening at Woody's Tavern on Main Street in Moab. They were last heard from on August 14th, and a concerned friend discovered them dead from gunshot wounds on August 18th. At this time, no arrests have been made and no suspects have been formally named. There's been speculations the double murder could be connected to the strangulation death of Gabby Potito, but authorities have ruled out that possibility. I haven't ruled it out, but authorities apparently have. We are seeking satellite imagery of that area for shortly before and immediately after they disappeared, but before they were found dead, Jensen explained. I don't expect that they are going to find a license plate, but because it's skyward, but we are hoping that it gives us at least a clue about what vehicle the killer may have been driving. If Jensen is able to determine the make, model, and color of that car, he will share that information across social media, which might yield additional clues about the man's identity. My approach to investigations is go public with my information because the public can help, Jensen said. If somebody had their dash cam on and happened to pass the same color vehicle, maybe their camera obtained a plate number. Then this case could be easily solved. Jensen said dozens of calls have been made to the tip line established by Schultz's dad, and that all of those leads are being explored. According to Jensen, Turner and Schultz left Woody's Tavern just after midnight and returned to their campsite shortly before 1 a.m. on August 14th. Both women failed to show up to their jobs at 5:30 a.m. on August 15th. So that means the window where they were murdered was very early on the 14th to very early on the 15th. So you're talking no better than 24-25-hour window, Jensen explained. Jensen says he has the names of a few people he's looking at as possible suspects, including a convict with a long history of violent arrests. That man, who wasn't captured until late last month, had been camping in Moab around the same time the women were killed. A GoFundMe campaign has been launched online to help surviving relatives with funeral expenses and to pay for their satellite imagery. Investigators ask anyone with information about the killings to contact them at 435-259-8115.
Did they say were they camping in a federal park, in a public park?
They were camping at LaSalle Mountains, just outside of Moab.
Was it private property or was it part of the National Park Service?
I believe it was part of the National Park.
Is it legal to take handguns into a national park?
That I don't know.
That would be an interesting thing to find out. Because, when you're out in the middle of absolute nowhere and it's 1 a.m. and you're camping...
I would want to have a handgun.
Yeah, you would want to have a pistol.
With you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So... let's take a quick break, and we will move on because we still have a lot more to cover.
So the next story here could very potentially be a disappointing end to an intriguing story about a woman from Cape Coral, Florida, who vanished in, I think it was either June or May of 2020.
June 2020.
Lauren Dumolo, and this story was one that kind of brought Lauren and Ken together with Jasmine and I as we were pursuing, trying to find the disappeared woman.
Right.
Not long after she was reported missing, and the story's been kind of cold for a while until this week when we came across information reported by Wink News in Southwest Florida, saying that the search for Cape Coral mother Lauren Dumolo may be at an end, which is a very affirmative way to lead that story off. It says Dumolo has been missing since June of 2020, but the Lee County Sheriff's Office and the Cape Coral Police Department said Wednesday they have found remains that match her description. The Sheriff's Office said they found the remains off Pine Island Road in North Fort Myers, but earlier this week, a Fox 4 viewer called us saying he saw deputies pulling a body out of the woods off of Pine Island Road near the intersection with US 41 Business. A woman we spoke with at the shopping center across the street also confirmed she saw that police activity last week. That means the expanse of woods off of that section of Pine Island Road may have been the final resting place of Lauren Dumolo. Sally Elkins works across the street and said she saw the commotion when deputies were on the scene last week. Quote, everybody was talking about they had found a body, and I guess they had it roped off or something so they couldn't get back there, said Elkins. And a quick recap on the story. So Lauren went missing, and her boyfriend, who was kind of a shady character, was never really named as a suspect. I don't even know if he was named as a person of interest or not.
I thought that he was named as a person of interest, but don't quote me on that because I'm not 100% sure.
And there was a lot of...
also her stepfather.
Okay. I don't recall that part of it. But then again, it's been a year and a half, so...
Yeah.
But there was a lot of, potential places to put the microscope, and I'm assuming Cape Coral PD did that, and they just came away with nothing. There were never any warrants announced. There were never any arrests made. And Jazmine and I went to the last place where Lauren was seen alive, and Jazmine read at that location, and we talked to somebody at the scene of her last known appearance or last known sighting of Lauren Dumolo alive, which was Four Freedoms Park in Cape Coral. Talked to people who knew the park, who knew the area, and there seemed to be this great disbelief around one piece of evidence, which is that her shirt showed up at the park 2 weeks after she disappeared.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that shirt was found by her boyfriend, who, again, was never charged with anything. So, and off she goes. She was never heard from again. Not a whisper. Her phone was left behind. And then her father came from California. And you guys can certainly go back and check out. I know you guys covered it extensively on Paradise After Dark. We did an episode together on Trouble in Paradise where we talked about it. And we covered the security cameras. We covered the psychic feedback that Jazmine was getting.
Because this case is very local to us where we live. So my show is nationwide. This isn't just a Florida podcast like Paradise After Dark. So the reason that Paradise After Dark and Trouble in Paradise teamed up and really dug into this is because this is very local to us. So it feels a little personal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it's just me, but it feels a little personal because it is so local.
And just the shady level of the whole thing.
Right.
It was like there was something about this case, but it was like, are you kidding me? How could it just seemed so? I don't know. There was a certain obviousness or sense of obviousness to it that we felt like. At least I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but I felt like it was botched from the get-go, and there was a lot of drama with people close to Lauren. And at any rate, I'm going to get the train back on the track here. According to the police report, deputies responded on October 5th to a location where they found something, but it doesn't say what or where. The description from Cape Coral Police Chief Anthony Sizemore fits that location. Quote, it was a wooded area in an unincorporated Lee County in North Fort Myers. We also found police caution tape left back in the woods. Elkins said that's an area where many homeless individuals camp. Quote, the fact that she was back there where they camp, we don't know what really happened to her, said Elkins. Now they're referring to, these are eyewitnesses referring to Lauren Dumolo directly. So they've concluded without scientific confirmation that this was in fact her, and that makes me think that the skeletal remains may have been accompanied by clothing that was identified with Lauren.
Right, yeah.
So, which leads into our next story.
Lauren Dumolo's dental records needed to identify recently found remains. The Lee County Sheriff's Office has announced they believe they have found the remains of Lauren Dumolo, but they need dental records to make a positive ID. Her disappearance on June 19th of 2020 has been investigated by the Cape Coral Police Department since that day. Lee County Sheriff Carmine Marcino said the skeletal remains of what appears to be a white woman between the ages of 30 and 50 were found. The person appears to have been deceased less than 5 years, but more than 6 months. The remains were found on October 5th in a wooded area, vacant lot off Pine Island Road in North Fort Myers. We've already gone over all of this, so it's sort of redundant. Marcino said the agency reviewed missing persons cases in the area and found the remains match the description of Lauren. We cannot conclude the remains belong to Lauren Dumolo. However, it cannot be excluded, Marcino said. He said he is making the announcement in hopes to find a dentist who treated Lauren. Cape Coral Police Chief Anthony Sizemore said the case has been a priority from the beginning. Every solid lead looks like it could be the one, and then to be let down is punishing, he said. Not every lead is shared with the family. Dumolo had a dental extraction about 10 years ago in Staten Island, Sizemore said. The hope is to track down the dentist in order to compare dental records with the remains. If the dental records can't be tracked down, Sizemore said skeletal DNA will be used, but that can be a long and painstaking process. Sizemore says, if the remains belong to Dumolo, then the Cape Coral Police Department will hand over the case to the Lee County Sheriff's Office.
I think they should just contact Gabrielle Pena and ask him who her dentist was.
Well,
that would make sense.
Right, but who knows if he knows?
Yeah, I don't. Have they been together? Have they been together for that long? I don't know. 10 years is quite a while ago.
I don't know. I'm really at a loss with this case.
Okay, on to our next story, and keeping politics out of this, but however, Jill Biden's ex-husband questioned by New York police over alleged affair with Robert Durst's first wife. The ex-husband of First Lady Jill Biden has been approached by New York State investigators regarding the 1982 disappearance of Robert Durst's first wife, according to a report. As a Westchester County grand jury on the millionaire real estate scion turned convicted killer is set to convene next week. Bill Stevenson, a businessman from Delaware who was previously married to President Biden's wife, has been approached by state investigators seeking more information about his alleged extramarital affair with Kathy Durst, News 12 Westchester First reported Wednesday, citing several anonymous sources. The outlet first sat down with Stevenson for a 2-hour interview earlier this year to detail how his lifelong friendship with Kathy Durst took an intimate turn in 1982, days before she went missing.
Now, I wonder, was he married to Jill Biden when this intimate turn with Kathy Durst happened? It doesn't say that, I don't think, but that's something I'd like to look into.
We would like to deep dive into that, probably.
Mm-hmm. Can I be on your show when you do?
Absolutely. He claimed Robert Durst barged in on them and directed violent threats at her. The next thing I realize, we hear pounding on the door. It's like 7:20 in the morning. She runs out of the bedroom and runs back in and says, "It's Bob." I jumped up. I ran out. Stevenson previously said in an on-camera interview months ago. Then all of a sudden he screamed something. He had a wad of cash rolled up and hit her right in the face with it. It was so crazy. And he was yelling, "Kathleen, this isn't going to happen. People have to understand that this guy is a monster." News 12 also reported that Westchester grand jury will convene no later than Monday to look into Durst's connection to Kathy's disappearance.
So a little background on this case, I just want to interject here. Kathy Durst was 29 and in her final months of medical school when she vanished on January 31st, 1982. She and Robert Durst, who was 38 at the time, had been married nearly 9 years and were living in South Salem near the Connecticut border. Her body was never found. At the request of her family, she was declared legally dead in 2017. Robert Durst claimed to police that on the night of her disappearance, he'd put her on a train to New York City, had a drink with a neighbor, and then spoke with Kathy Durst by telephone when she stayed at their Manhattan apartment. They'd been fighting earlier in the evening, he said. A few weeks before that, Kathy Durst went to the hospital with facial injuries she said were caused by Robert Durst. The 2015 HBO documentary, The Jinx, The Life and Death of Robert Durst, he admitted he made up the details about seeing his neighbor and talking to Kathy Durst by phone, saying he did so because he was hoping that would just make everything go away. In the same documentary, after filmmakers confronted Durst with evidence linking him to Susan Berman's killing, he stepped off camera and muttered to himself on a live microphone in the bathroom, "Killed them all, of course." Robert Durst, who divorced Kathy Durst in 1990, citing abandonment, was never charged in her disappearance, despite several efforts over the years to close the case. Authorities reopened the case in 1999, searching a lake and the couple's home. And I just want to interject here because this just came on a notification on my phone. This is breaking news within the last couple hours. This comes from the Los Angeles Times. Robert Durst has been sentenced to life in prison for murdering Susan Berman. So he will live out the rest of his days in a California prison for killing his longtime confidant Susan Berman inside her Los Angeles home in the year 2000. Now we've talked about this. We've talked about Robert, this whole trial and everything on this case many times on this show, so we don't have to go back into it. Just saying that this literally popped up on my phone within the last couple hours, and that is the very most up-to-date information on Robert Durst. Life in prison. He's going to die. He's going to rot in prison.
It's quite a circle up there in Delaware. My goodness.
Yeah.
So, Alex Murdaugh.
Your favorite.
He is probably going to get convicted of Murdaugh here. Alex Murdaugh's lawyer finally admits he's a person of interest in family murders. After months of speculation, Alex Murdaugh's lawyers have finally admitted the South Carolina attorney, who's already accused of orchestrating his own murder, which was botched in an incredible way.
Yes.
And it almost makes you wonder if this whole thing was intentional to begin with.
Just keep going, because we're going to get into that. There's more.
Is a person of interest.
There's more that has come out about Murdaugh, like, in the last 3 or 4 hours.
This one is a mind-bending story.
It is.
All right. Now, Jim Griffin, one of Murdaugh's attorneys, confirmed that the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, a.k.a.
It says
SLED.
Scion. You didn't say Scion.
I skipped Scion on purpose because, okay, I'm 22. I just got out of college. My degree is in English. I studied journalism, and I can't wait to slip the word Scion into an article. Anyway, Jim Griffin, one of the Scion's attorneys, confirmed that the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, a.k.a. SLED, began investigating Murdaugh from the get-go in the June 7 murders of his 52-year-old wife, Margaret, and his 22-year-old son, Paul. Authorities say that Murdaugh called 911 around 10 p.m. after finding his family brutally shot near the dog kennels outside their 1,770-acre estate in Colleton County. That's pretty good. In that 7-minute call, Murdaugh tells the dispatcher, "I've been up to it now. It's bad." While dogs bark in the background. What? I've been up to it now? It's bad?
I don't know what that means.
It's like he's telling on himself. Despite being named as a person of interest, Murdaugh's lawyer insisted to Fox Carolina on Wednesday that his client was visiting with his mother, who has dementia,
conveniently,
at the time of the murders, and, quote, had no motive to kill them. Quote, "You would think that if Alex was the one who did it, that SLED would have been able to establish that pretty easily that night." Wow, they're just kind of bonking law enforcement, right? Belittling them. This Griffin guy's just belittling them. "You would think they would have searched his house and found blood somewhere. You would think they would have found the murder weapons on the property. You would think they would come up with something to link Alex to the murders, forensically or independent evidence. To my knowledge, they have not done that." So he's just going on the offensive against the investigators. Griffin, however, admitted that state authorities, quote, "are not sharing information, but I believe if they had that information, they would have charged Alex, and they have not charged him." So he's daring them.
Yeah.
I mean, this Griffin guy must know that he's wearing every charge like a tacky suit, and that they're going to get him. So he's posturing, he's politicking a little bit, grandstanding a little bit. SLED did not respond to the Daily Beast's request for comment about Murdaugh being a person of interest. Quote, he loved his wife, he loved his son. The murders were done in the most brutal fashion, Griffin said, noting that he had reviewed Murdaugh's text messages with his wife and that there was no indication of a domestic dispute. Quote, he didn't do it. I feel strongly that he didn't do it, Murdaugh's lawyer added. Quote, nobody wants to solve these murders as much as Alex.
But I'm going to refer back to, I believe it was week 39, 2 weeks ago, where I read the news article where they had found out that Maggie Murdaugh had visited a divorce attorney in Charleston, South Carolina, only maybe 2 to 3 weeks before she was murdered. So there may be some motive there. Just saying.
I think Murdaugh's entire MO has to do with his
money,
his money issues, his addiction problems, his need to just constantly liquidate the people in his life in order to pay for whatever he's consuming. It kind of makes me wonder whether the botched suicide was really just a show item.
Well, I'm going to stop you there because we've got more on that.
Okay.
So let me keep going. Our next headline about Alex Murdaugh. Alex Murdaugh arrested today. Today we are recording this at 8:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 14th.
Breaking the deadline.
Accused of stealing $4.3 million of late housekeeper's insurance settlement. Alex Murdaugh has been arrested and charged with misappropriating insurance settlement funds in the wrongful death suit that followed the mysterious trip and fall death of his longtime housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, authorities announced. On Thursday morning, agents with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, aka SLED, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement took the longtime attorney, 52, into custody as he left a drug rehabilitation facility in Orlando, Florida. He's charged with 2 felony counts of obtaining property by false pretenses. These charges stem from a SLED investigation into misappropriated settlement funds in the death of Gloria Satterfield. Satterfield worked as a housekeeper for the Murdaugh family for years. She purportedly died after an accident in their home in 2018. Her sons filed a wrongful death lawsuit alleging, at Murdaugh's suggestion, the son's attorney, Eric Bland, said, but they never saw a dime of it, Bland said. Murdaugh had been taken to Orange County Corrections where he will be held until he receives an extradition hearing. Upon extradition being granted or waived, he will be brought back to South Carolina to receive a bond hearing. In September, the sons reached a settlement with Corey Fleming, the lawyer who had been representing them but had allegedly withheld the money from them, according to Bland and his partner, Ronnie Richter.
Oh, boy.
In September, an argument between the estate of Gloria Satterfield, attorney Corey Fleming, and his firm, Moss, Kuhn, and Fleming, and their insurance carrier was reached in connection with the pending lawsuit, attorneys Eric Bland and Ronnie Richter said in a statement obtained by People. Mr. Fleming and his firm agreed that the estate will be paid back all legal fees and expenses Mr. Fleming and his law firm received from the $4,300,000 they recovered for the estate in connection with the claims asserted against Alex Murdaugh for the death of Gloria Satterfield. In addition, their malpractice insurance carrier agreed to pay the estate their full policy limit of insurance. Mr. Fleming stepped forward and did the right thing by the estate. Mr. Fleming and his law firm maintain they, like others, were victims of Alex Murdaugh's fraudulent scheme. A more comprehensive joint statement from Mr. Fleming, his firm, and the Satterfield estate will be issued later this week. So we will probably be covering that on next week's episode of True Crime Headlines. And moving on, now getting back to Nigel's comment about the botched suicide plot. Jasmine, take it away.
Alex Murdaugh, 1,000%, was never shot in a botched suicide plot. Set up alleged hitman, lawyer claims. The South Carolina attorney representing Alex Murdaugh's alleged hitman said Thursday that his client is being set up by the drug-addicted, disgraced lawyer, insisting Murduagh didn't get shot during an alleged botched suicide plot Labor Day weekend. Curtis, Fast Eddie Smith, is...
Fast Eddie.
Is that's the hitman?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Curtis Fast Eddie Smith is being set up by a drug addict going through horrific withdrawals, Smith's lawyer, Johnny McCoy, told NBC's Today, referring 53-year-old Alex Murdaugh, whose own defense lawyer, Dick
Harpootlian.
Dick
Harpootlian.
Dick Harpootlian. Just start that one over.
It's hard not to laugh at this craziness.
Dude, this is the fucking nuttiest damn thing. This fucking story, like, this is, you couldn't write this as a novel. It's like,
I know.
Well, that's why I'm like, between the damn name of the hitman
and the name of the
Harpootlian.
Harpootlian.
Okay. Curtis Fast Eddie Smith is
leaving all of that in there, by the way.
is being set up by a drug addict going through horrific withdrawals, Smith's lawyer Johnny McCoy told NBC's Today, referring 53-year-old Alex Murdaugh, whose own defense lawyer Dick Harpootlian told a judge had struggled with 20 years of opioid addiction. I think that Murdaugh, is doing exactly what people with addict behavior do, and that is he tried to turn himself into a victim, and he tried to turn himself into a hero because the attention was on the car on the side of the road, McCoy said. All the people there were figuring it out. These are run flat tires. This isn't what it looks like. 9 days into his detox from his detox bed, he's the first person I've ever met who calls someone from a detox bed and gets somebody arrested like that. Murdaugh, 53, initially claimed he had gotten a flat tire on rural Hampton County Road on September 4th while on the way to the beach for Labor Day weekend, and someone shot at him from a moving vehicle. His lawyers claimed he was airlifted to the hospital in Savannah, Georgia. The incident happened a day after the law firm PMPED had asked for Murdaugh's resignation, alleging he misappropriated client funds. It wasn't until 10 days later that Smith, 61, was arrested and charged with assisted suicide, assault and battery of a high aggravated nature, pointing and presenting a firearm, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud in connection to the alleged shooting. Murdaugh allegedly told South Carolina's State Law Enforcement Division he provided Smith with the gun and hired him to kill him, so his surviving son, 26-year-old Buster Murdaugh, could collect a $10 million life insurance policy, but Smith allegedly missed, only grazing him in the head. You can't make this up. His attorney at the bond hearing said, "My client is looking forward to cooperating in the murder investigation of his wife and child when his mental and physical stability is returned," McCoy said. Yet a week earlier, he was mentally stable enough to lock my client up based on his words, and that's it. Smith, a handyman and former logger, has insisted that he had no prior knowledge of any insurance scheme when Murdaugh called him on September 4th and asked him to bring over his work truck. Smith said he met a distressed Murdaugh on the side of the road who asked Smith to shoot him. An exchange took place where Alex Murdaugh is withdrawing. He's going through it, as you can imagine, for someone who just cut off their money supply that they were using for 20 years to buy opioids, McCoy said. Smith declined when Murduagh motioned to shoot himself. Smith tried to grab the firearm from him. The gun went off, and the bullet appeared to bounce off the side of the truck, Smith told NBC News. Murduagh fell to the ground, and Smith asked if Murduagh was okay and fled the scene. What % are you sure he didn't get shot? McCoy asked Smith in an on-camera interview. Smith responds, 1,000. He didn't get shot, McCoy affirms.
So how did they, if he was life-flighted, it's pretty easy to document whether or not somebody was life-flighted. If that's the claim, and he didn't get shot at all, where in the hell is this information coming from about the life flight?
I think they're lying. I think that they're lying about it.
Pretty easy to prove, right? A simple call to the the paramedics or the hospital or whatever. Nope, never went there, never flew a helicopter.
I don't know. This case is so off the wall. I don't even know what to say, honestly. It's wacky. And on that note, that's actually all we have for this evening.
That's it?
That's it. It's actually, we did like 11 stories, I think.
Wow.
We covered a lot.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything you want to add?
I'm getting the no, you talk from Jazmine Starr. Well, it's interesting because this Murduagh thing is like beyond. It's like I can't believe how absurd it is. You can't make this stuff
No,
up.
I know.
Nobody could write.
Same thing with Brian Laundrie situation.
Yes. Yeah. The hand sticking out of the flower bed though, that is total that is definitely Trouble in Paradise conspiracy theory territory.
Yeah.
Like, there's an arm. There's a picture of an arm. I mean, it's probably like a garden gnome that fell over and like there's a little garden gnome hand sticking out or something.
So before we wrap up here, I know that my listeners are familiar with you, Nigel. We talked about your show, Big Tech Watchdog. Now you also have another show that you do with Jazz here, Trouble in Paradise. Everybody should check them out because they're awesome.
Well, thank you.
So if you want to follow us, you can find us at Trouble in Paradise. We've got a great show upcoming. We'll be live streaming on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Great guests coming on, comedian and highly censored off at the Food Network. He had a show for 4 years, Ginormous Food. We'll have on comedian Josh Denny, and he will be live with us at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube channel.
And that's this coming Monday, right?
That's going to be Sunday the 17th.
Sunday,
yes,
okay.
October 17th. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we'll be playing a little game with him, doing a little deep dive into little conspiracy theory, and then finishing up with some good Florida man stories.
Awesome. Love me some Florida stuff.
Yep. I mean, because all this stuff only happens in Florida, although it's apparently creeping up to Georgia and the Carolinas now, too, based on the Murduagh thing. Yeah. So, Jazmine, how do people get a hold of you?
You can find me at star_light_readings on Instagram. We're at Trouble239 on Instagram. And you can find me on Twitter at Jazmine Starr. It's JazmineStarr239.
We like to spell things weird, so... I'm Nigel Kent, NigelKent239 on Twitter, and that's pretty much the best way to reach me. If you'd like to send us an email, it's trouble@trouble239.com, and we're always very, very grateful to Lauren and Ken and Napoleon for letting us join in, hang out at the Pad
Napoleon is our dog.
Yeah, Napoleon and Hash Brown the Bike Dog have been kind of getting after each other a little bit. There's a little competitive rivalry.
They've been like under the table while we've been doing this whole show. It's been cool though.
Well, thank you very much for having us. We do appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. I love it when you guys come and help me out on these crazy stories.
And you have to come on the Watchdog show because
I am going to come on the Watchdog show.
We have to talk about censorship, freedom of speech, and a couple other things too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. We'll do that. And again, if you would like to support this show, True Crime Headlines, or our other show, Paradise After Dark Podcast, please consider joining our Palmahawk Media Patreon page at patreon.com/Palmahawk Media. That's PALAMAHAWK Media. And I will talk at y'all next week. Everybody have a wonderful week. Everybody want to say bye? Bye. Thanks for listening.
Okay, first of all, I met Scott Peterson November 20th, 2002.
Directly to the killer, who may be in this room.
I'm going to turn now to that new charge for the so-called doomsday mom, Laurie Vallow. Already charged in the killing of her two children, she is now being indicted for conspiracy to commit murder.
A violation of Penal Code Section 187 Prene, murder in the first degree. How do you plead?
We all did.